first, as he said, in a series of 3 on contemplative practices in education. This is the introduction workshop. We've given it a couple of times, and it's been tweaked and changed along the way, so it is a little different than even the first 2 times. But we will be doing a couple of things, so we've got a lot to get through. We're going to hopefully be able to define what mindfulness is, describe some benefits of practicing mindfulness, discuss the origin, history, and science of mindfulness very, very briefly. Identify at least one mindfulness technique that we can personally incorporate into our everyday life if we so choose. And then, again, if we choose, be able to create a personal plan to incorporate mindfulness into your daily life. So we're going to get all of that done. But why? Well, short term, these techniques, at the very least, will help you to reduce stress and increase happiness. So hopefully you take at least one thing back with you. Long term, I'm hoping, though, that this will introduce you to mindfulness as a whole and as a practice and something that you're going to do more regularly, which will ultimately lead to decreased stress, lower burnout rates, greater happiness, compassion, all of those good, happy things. So how we're going to get there, we're going to do introductions, which will not take very long, another benefit of a small group. We're going to then move into the definitions, history, and benefits, spend about 15 minutes, if not less than that. We're going to look at some particular mindfulness activities and meditation. And then we're going to have a couple of activities we're going to do as a group. We're going to do a mindful breathing activity. We're going to do some mindful eating. And then we'll spend some time on those personal plans and then wrap up, and I can answer any questions you might have at that. Hopefully we'll get it all done in about 50 minutes. So here's the introduction part. I would like for each of you to tell me who you are, where you work, and how long you've been there, what your experience level is with mindfulness, even if it's none, and then tell me why you're here and what you hope to accomplish. Would you like to? Welcome. Perfect. Hopefully we can help you with that.
Thank you, Bentley. I'm a musicologist with music and it's my first year here. Not quite 2 weeks, a little bit. And I have some experience with mindfulness in yoga, but less outside of yoga. And I get around.
Awesome.
My name's Paul. I teach in dance and entertainment and also here at the center. Been here 9 years, and my experience level with mindfulness is what I've learned from Ashley, and have learned how to be mindful as just being associated with her, but not actively study. And I hope to continue to grow in that.
My name is Charlotte Wilson, and I direct the Montessori Teacher Publisher. And in my current position as a director, going on the 7th year, but I've been an adjunct instructor here for, I don't know, 25, 30 years, something like that. So a long history here. My experience with mindfulness is, again, I've just kind of being around Ashley and hearing her talk about it. And then I picked up a book someone had left on the giveaway book thing over in Arts and Sciences. And it was on mindfulness. And I thought, well, I started flipping through it, and there was some references to Montessori, some of the activities and things that we do, and it piqued my interest even more. So anyway, I'm here to learn more.
Awesome. Great. Well, welcome, all of you. Glad you braved the cold to be with us. I'm going to move around the room a little bit so he has some different shots, not me just standing behind a table. Most of you know who I am. Ashley Harness now, used to be Riddle, if that causes any confusion. I'm the coordinator here, which means I plan all of our events and keep track of, the administrative side of things here in the office. But and even though it wasn't in my job description, really loved the idea of doing faculty development workshops. And so I kind of pushed my way into that, and here I am doing that. And now we all work great as a team, I believe. But the way I came to study mindfulness is through my graduate studies. at UCO. I kind of stumbled upon it much the same way, a magazine here, a 2020 special here, and I thought, well, wouldn't that be great to research? And so I did some research on the effects of practicing mindfulness on adult learners, since I was surrounded by a bunch of other adult learners who were super stressed out all the time in grad school. And while I was studying it, I chose like a good researcher to practice it and kind of explore it through different ways. So I practice it through Buddhism as a Buddhist, and then I also heavily study secular uses of it, which is what you will come into contact here. Okay, so the formal definitions of mindfulness. Upon Googling the word, you would find any number of definitions, and there's not one that's necessarily right over the other. So I picked a couple. The formal one, Oxford Dictionaries, mental state achieved by focusing one's awareness on the present moment while calmly acknowledging and accepting one's feelings, thoughts, and bodily sensations. Or a particular state of consciousness that involves awareness and acceptance of whatever is happening in the present moment. And my favorite, a basic human ability to be fully present, aware of where we are and what we're doing, and not overly reactive or overwhelmed by what's going on around us. The reason this is my favorite is, as it touches on a basic human ability, this means that as soon as we know what it is, it's something we can absolutely do right now. We all are born with the ability to do this. We don't have to be born with a special talent or practice it to be able to do it. Now, to get really good at it, yes, you have to practice it, but we could all do it right now. So I have a couple of analogies I think help kind of wrap our brain around this concept. Have you ever been driving to work, suddenly you realize you don't remember how you got where you are? Like, when did I change lanes? I hope I looked, but I don't remember doing it, right? Okay, so obviously that is an example of not being mindful. And research shows it's happening a lot more often than we realize, and in other places other than on the road. So that's scary.
Yeah, I drove all the way to 30th Street before I realized I passed the university.
Oh no, I've done that. So we got to work with Lily here. Let's get her a little, yeah, no, it happens to all of us. I mean, and I have days where I'm like, oh my gosh, I was not paying attention. So that is a good example, and I never am in a room where everybody doesn't nod to that. So it tells you, it tells you something. So I have all these other analogies I used to have that I thought were great, but this guy, this is Dan Harris. He's the voice of the mouse guy. He's a well-known news anchor that had a meltdown on national television, an anxiety attack, and since then discovered mindfulness and is now singing the praises and has written 2 books I know of for sure. He's very entertaining, and he created this little short video that I think explains mindfulness better than I ever could with all the analogies in the world. Where's my thing? So we're going to give that just a couple minutes and watch that.
You may have heard this word mindfulness. It's become something of a buzz phrase of late. I'm going to give you one simple, serviceable definition, which is this. Mindfulness is the ability to know what's happening in your head at any given moment without getting carried away by it. Imagine how useful this could be. Just as an example, you're driving down the road and somebody cuts you off in traffic. How do you normally react? I think most of us, we normally react by having a thought, which is, I'm pissed. And then what happens next? You immediately, habitually, reflexively inhabit that thought. You actually become pissed. There's no buffer between the stimulus and your reaction. With just a little bit of mindfulness, in that same situation, you might notice my chest is buzzing, my ears are turning red, I'm having a starburst of self-righteous thoughts, I'm getting angry. But you don't necessarily have to act on it and chase that person down the road, screaming at them with your kids in the back of the car thinking you've gone nuts. Now, you might be thinking, don't I need to get angry sometimes? Aren't I justified? I would say yes, but probably not as much as you think. The proposition here is not that you should be rendered by mindfulness into some lifeless, non-judgmental blob. The proposition is that you should learn how to respond wisely to things that happen to you, rather than just reacting blindly. And that, my friends, is a superpower. How do you get it? The way to get it is through meditation. I believe that meditation and mindfulness are the next big public health revolution. In the 1940s, if you told somebody you were going running, they would have said, "Who's chasing you?" But then what happened next? The scientists swooped in, they showed that physical exercise is really good for you, and now all of us do it, and if we don't, we feel guilty about it. And that's where I think we're headed with mindfulness and meditation. It's going to join the pantheon of no-brainers like brushing your teeth, eating well, and taking the meds your doctor prescribed for you. Let me just close by saying, mindfulness is not going to solve all of your problems. It's not going to render your life a nonstop parade of unicorns and rainbows. Nonetheless, this is a superpower, and one that is accessible by you immediately.
So yeah, I think he does a great job explaining it. Do you guys agree? Get it to move. Okay, at this point, does anybody have any questions? Because I'm going to move into like a really brief like overview of history. Nope. Our mouse friend helped us understand. Okay, so a very short, because I am not a historian, but the origin of mindfulness dates way back, as far back as 535, 1500 BCE with Hinduism, Taoism, but it's most commonly associated with Buddhism. You know, the bald guy sitting on a pillow with his legs crossed. But people like John Kabat-Zinn, who actually first introduced it here in the West in the 70s, has made it very popular. The secular uses of it have become very popular. He created an MBSR program, which is now used in many hospitals to help people with chronic and ongoing pain. But since then, the popularity, and as I'm sure you've all noticed, of mindfulness has grown. According to Time magazine, 1 in 7 U.S. workers claims to practice some sort of mindfulness activity. While there are many options, as you'll learn in today's workshop, yoga and meditation are the most commonly reported. And according to Forbes, in 2016, 667 papers on mindfulness were published in scientific journals, as opposed to only 47 just a decade before that. So it's definitely become more popular. But what it's resulted in is a $4 billion industry of magazines, apps, and books. Like it says here, over 100,000 titles listed on Amazon alone, and that was in 2016, so I'm willing to bet it's even grown. So it's become very popular. And that's what I'm going to give you for the history. So we know, hopefully, a better idea of what it is, where it came from. Now let's talk about why it's so awesome. So there's been much research on the benefits of mindfulness, and the list is actually growing still. But some of the most common benefits listed are lower perceived stress, improved attention, better focus, increased happiness, and compassion. And specifically for educators, has shown to lower burnout rates and improve the student-teacher relationship. So all good things. All right, so back to the meat of it. What we actually want to learn is how to practice it, right? So there are many, many options for mindfulness. It is not just meditation. We can do meditation, yes. We can do yoga, which some of you may have already done. There's a walking meditation, mindful eating, folding origami, qigong, even adult coloring books, which is why you'll see at any of my events, I always have them out. But basically, any activity that allows you to focus your attention on that thing and calm your thoughts can be a practice in mindfulness. So, for instance, we have a stitch work or crocheting and knitting group on campus. It's a perfect, great mindfulness activity if you actually are going. And I also hear they go and they gossip a lot, and that's fun too. But if you are focusing on that actual activity, I had a mindfulness experience washing the dishes not too long ago. It hasn't happened since, but it can happen. Any activity that you can focus on. Dia Campbell, she does gardening. She thinks that's a very good mindful activity for her. So those are just some examples. But basically, you can do any number of things. But I'm going to break down for you the common ones, and I broke them down into a couple different categories. First up is active, because we have a lot of people that actually prefer to stay active, and so it's hard for them to sit still and focus just on meditation. So So I offer some other options. Now, yoga, when I first learned of yoga, this is what yoga was, which is why I never did it. But I have since then married a yoga instructor and learned that, in fact, this is a little more realistic. It can be done to the degree of the person practicing it. So it's much more realistic and can be done at home or in a studio, even in a chair. But because you're focusing on the breathing and the placement of your body, really focusing your attention in on that, yoga is a great mindfulness activity. Qigong, or Tai Chi. Now, Qigong is actually there are a bunch of different types of activities that fit into this category. Tai Chi is just an example of one, and Tai Chi is the slow, I'm not going to do it because there's a videographer in this room, but the slow movement. You'll see people maybe out in the park where they're moving really slow and deliberately. Kung Fu is actually also considered a Qigong activity. So what they all have in common, though, is that you're focused on the breath and the movement and posture and things like that. Again, much like yoga, another good mindfulness activity. So if you're an active person, those are some good options. Now, I'm moving to the biggest category, focused attention. And this is, just as it sounds, anything that allows us to focus our attention on something. So the first up is body scan. And this is a type of meditation where the meditator would lie or sit and slowly, inch by inch, focus on every part of the body. So typically like moving from toes and up, and allows them to notice any pain, discomfort, or sensations, relax that, maybe kind of just take note of it. But it's a slow, progressive meditation. By the time you've finished it, if you've done it slow enough, you've spent 30, 45 minutes focusing wholly on your body. But it's not difficult. Mindful walking. This is one I preach a lot up here because we're always running back and forth to meetings from building to building, from our car and to the supermarket. You can mindfully walk just about anywhere. Now, we recommend find a spot where there isn't traffic. You're not going to get hit or hurt. But, barring that, you can mindfully walk. And it's basically you just focus on the sensation of walking. So, of course, we're going to put our phone away. We're going to not probably be looking at everyone around us or talking, but really just focusing on what it feels like to take each step, our breathing, whatever it is you choose to focus on. So those can really fill in the gaps in our day. Breathing fits in here, as you'll see from the activities you're going to do later. This is a simple mindfulness activity. Breathing is a thing we do all day, every day, right? So we know we have what we need to participate in this activity. And I will give you an example of how to do that just a little bit later. And then mindful eating. Snack break. So mindful eating is another example of one that you can do with your everyday activities because we eat every day. Hopefully you all are eating every day. While there are different levels of this kind of activity, you could eat an entire meal mindfully in silence. Or you could just choose to do it for the first few bites of every meal. Or maybe you say, I'm going to do it in the morning when I'm by myself eating breakfast. We're going to do, if that's okay with everybody, we're going to do a little mindful eating activity. I'm going to walk you through it. And you can kind of think for yourself whether this is something you can incorporate into your day. So there in front of you, you should see some options. Typically, this meditation is done for the first time with a raisin, but I don't care for raisins, so I learned that chocolate is a nice replacement. So you can pick whichever one works best for you, whatever you like. I will not judge, I promise. And so all you have to do, I'm just going to give you some verbal prompts. Whatever snack you've chosen, and if you've got a raisin, get a raisin out of the box. All right, and we're going to start by first taking your snack and holding it in the palm of your hand or between your finger and thumb. and focus on it. And while you're focusing on it, imagine that you have never seen anything like this before. Okay, take time to really examine it. Gaze at it with care and intense attention. Explore every part of it, how the light hits it, highlights and darker areas, folds, ridges, any unique feature. Now turn the snack over between your fingers. Just look at all the sides, exploring the texture. You might even close your eyes while you explore how it feels. Holding the object beneath your nose, with each breath, notice any aroma or smell that comes to your nose. Notice how these smells might affect what happens in your mouth or stomach. Now slowly bring the snack to your lips. Gently place the object in your mouth without chewing, and notice how it feels in your mouth, and spend a few moments exploring it with your tongue. When you're ready, prepare to chew the snack. Consciously take 1 or 2 bites, and then notice what happens. Experience any taste that comes from it as you keep chewing, without swallowing. Notice the taste and texture in the mouth and how it changes over time. When you feel ready to swallow your snack, see if you can recognize the intention to swallow, the feeling of need or want to swallow, and then consciously swallow the snack. See if you can feel it moving down into your stomach, and sense how you feel as a whole after completing the mindful eating exercise. All right. So those of you who had chocolate, what I learned in past sessions, if I go too slow, it melts before we ever get to the point. So, but you can kind of see how that is something you can kind of deliberately do silently in your head. Now, I always say if you're in cafeteria, right, you're not going to eat your whole entire meal like that. People are going to start looking at you like you're the weird person, and you're new, so we don't want that for you, right? Okay. But if you did decide to do that for maybe just the first couple of bites, think of how differently you would experience your food. And it's even been used in like weight loss programs and such, although they don't really, market it the same way. But just paying attention and letting your body kind of react to the food.
Or people with eating disorders.
Yeah. I'm sure there would be plenty of research to show that that's. But yeah, it's been around, but I try to do it when I have a quiet moment. So we did that. Okay, so the last of the categories of activities that I had down was gratitude and journaling, or the reflective practices. Up first, we talk about gratitude. Now, the reason why I take time to talk about gratitude, because it seems like such a no-brainer, right? We all want to believe that we're really grateful in our lives. Why I'm going to touch on it is because I think it's a really important part of living a mindful life. And it's more than just having this vague idea of I'm grateful for my life. It's about taking moments out of every day to stop and think about something specific and unique that you're grateful for. So specifically, like if we look, I could say, okay, I'm grateful for my husband. Well, that's not specific enough because I'm grateful for him every day, unless he's made me mad. But if I say I'm grateful for my husband today because he went out and got me something I really wanted, that I've been wanting for a really long time, or he cleaned the kitchen so I didn't have to, whatever. And then the next day I'd have to come up with something different. Research is showing that doing this simple activity, at first it's actually quite difficult for us to find even one thing that we're specifically grateful for. But as we've practiced, it becomes harder to just think of one thing, and you often have many. And what's happening is over time, our perception of our life and our world in general is actually changing. We're starting to get better at noticing the positive and less of the negative, because a lot of times we end up actually kind of perceiving our world a little more negatively than it actually is. So that's why I take the few moments I do to stress that even if it's just simply taking some time out of every day to find something you're grateful for and writing it down. I do it in my planner. I have a little spot on my planner where I do it. It can make a huge difference. And journaling kind of goes into this because some people choose to keep a gratitude journal to kind of go a little more specific about it. Or you can keep a meditation journal to help you keep track of what your meditations are like. What worked for you? Did you have a good one? Did you have a bad one? What were you thinking about that kept distracting you? You can keep those journals to help you kind of keep track of those kinds of things. All good mindfulness activities. But as we stressed before, one of the most popular, highly recommended, considered to make the biggest difference is meditation. And meditation can be done many different ways. You can sit, you can lay, you can stand. There are different postures you'll see people sitting in or whatever it is. It ultimately, though, is a person who's sitting still in a comfortable, stable position and focusing on their breath or whatever it is they've chosen to focus on, and not letting their thoughts drag them away from that. So we do meditation here at the school. I have a meditation class, and we do mindful meditation. Is just almost always just sitting and counting our breaths. Really simple thing, so that everyone feels like, even if they're brand new, they can come and do it. So, really quick, I got another great video that will show you scientifically what's happening. I think it's just 2 minutes long. And then one more after that, our math friends kind of come back and explain how to meditate. And so total, the two videos are about 5 minutes.
Of years, people have practiced meditation for spiritual, emotional, and physical well-being. But from a scientific perspective, how exactly does meditating affect your body? Does it really do anything? It all starts in the brain. During meditation, brain scans see increased activity in regions directly correlated with decreased anxiety and depression, along with increased pain tolerance. The default mode network in particular is activated when one's mind is at rest and not focusing on the outside world, and has been found to improve memory, self-awareness, and goal setting. Want to be more caring to your friends and family? When scientists compared the brains of Buddhist monks to new meditators, they found the region of the brain associated with empathy to be much more pronounced in the monks. It also literally changes your brain waves, and we can measure these frequencies. Meditators have higher levels of alpha waves, which have been shown to reduce feelings of negative mood, tension, sadness, and anger. And if that wasn't enough, it also physically changes our brain shape and size. Studies found that after 8 weeks of a meditation program, gray matter was more dense in areas associated with learning, memory processing, and emotion regulation. And yet the amygdala, which deals with stress, blood pressure, and fear, had decreased gray matter. When we look at the entire body, not only do we see decreased blood pressure, but it can also increase the variability of your heart rate. And while this may sound harmful, it actually plays a critical role in properly transporting oxygen and carbon dioxide throughout your body. Think you're getting sick? In a study where both meditators and non-meditators were given the flu virus, meditators were able to produce a greater number of antibodies and had increased immune function. If we go a little deeper, we can even see changes on a cellular level. Your chromosomes have protective protein complexes called telomeres, which help reduce damage to your DNA and lower cell death. And a shortened telomere length has been linked to several diseases such as cardiovascular disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, and cancer. Amazingly, when cancer survivors completed a meditation program, their bodies showed significant increases in telomere length. It's believed that psychological intervention, particularly decreasing stress, has a direct effect on the enzyme telomerase, which has been shown to counteract shortening by adding DNA to the shrinking telomeres. Of course, meditation is not a substitute for other medical advice or a healthy lifestyle. We don't want you leaving this video thinking it will cure cancer. But much like hitting the gym can grow your muscles and increase your overall health, it seems that meditation may be a way of working out your brain with extra health benefits. And since your brain controls, well, all of you, why not relax and say, every once in a while? And if you like working out your brain, be sure to get our ASAP Science book, which is now available.
scientific. I go into detail more about the parts of your brain that shrinks and grows as this happens, but I thought that was a really good shortened version of some of the scientific things going on behind that. So let's have our math friend back for a very short little meditation 101. He's going to tell us how we're going to do it. And then after that, if everyone's ready to try it, we will do a short mindful breathing activity.
Despite what you may have heard, meditation does not involve joining a group, paying any fees, wearing any special outfits, sitting in a funny position, or believing in anything in particular. It is simple, secular, scientifically validated exercise for your brain. You don't have to do it yet, but just so you know, here are the 3 steps. 1, sit with your back straight and your eyes closed. 2, notice the feeling of your breath coming in and going out. Pick a spot where it's most prominent. Usually that's your nose or your chest or your belly, and just focus your full attention on the feeling of your breath coming in and going out. Now, as soon as you try to do this, your mind's going to go nuts. You're going to start thinking about, what am I going to have for lunch? Why did I say that dumb thing to my boss? Your brain's going to go nuts, and that's fine. The whole game is to notice when you've gotten lost and to start over, and then to start over again, and again, and again. Every time you do that, it's like a bicep curl for your brain, and it shows up on the brain scan. Scientists have found this in the lab. It's also, by the way, a radical act. You're breaking a lifetime's habit of walking around in a fog of projection and rumination, and you're actually focusing on what's happening right now. Meditation is unlike anything you do in the rest of your life. Failure is actually success. As I said, the whole game is just trying, failing, starting again, failing, starting again. Here's my advice. You should be meditating every day, 5 to 10 minutes a day. That's it. This doesn't require some giant investment. I don't care how busy you are. You have 5 to 10 minutes to give this a shot. I guarantee you it will make a big difference.
That's all the videos, I promise. But I thought he did a really good job of explaining, really. In fact, I had one of our members of our meditation group came, and we watched that on the first class, and he's like, this whole time I have thought I just was terrible at meditating, that I was not going to be able to do it, and him explaining to him that the failure part, the realizing that you've gotten distracted, even if it happens 30 times in a 5-minute period, that's actually the activity, bringing it back, that's helping your brain to change for the positive. So, and it's happening to everyone in the room. So, does anybody have any questions so far before we try it? No? Okay, so this one, very simple. We're going to spend 3 minutes doing a breathing activity. I will, walk you through it, but essentially just as he said, I'm going to sit comfortably, back straight, but not in an uncomfortable way. So it's best not to lean against the chair, but sometimes that's the only way we can be comfortable. So if you have to choose between the two, be comfortable, be stable. Feet flat on the ground in front of you, and your hands and in whatever position is comfortable and stable for you. So it could be palms down on your legs, palms up, kind of in the middle, whatever is comfortable. He tells you to close your eyes. I somewhat disagree with this. I think you can, if that's what you prefer. You also can choose to leave them open with soft focus kind of in front of you. It's whatever you're comfortable with. But as he says, you are going to focus on breathing. In what part of your body do you notice your breath the most? Your nose, your chest, your belly. Maybe you have more than one spot. Whatever that is, pick that spot because you're going to focus on what it feels like to simply breathe in and breathe out. The other thing I want to make sure you don't try to do is to control your breath. A lot of times meditators try to slow down their breath and control it and go in like a perfect rhythm. Don't do that either. Just breathe as you would normally and comfortably. I recommend, especially if it's first time meditating, that you try counting your breaths. It gives you something else to focus on. So we count the out breath. So you breathe in, out, 1. In, out, 2. And you go on and so forth. You can count to 10 and start over. You can just keep going. And at any point you notice that you've become distracted and lost count, just start back over at 1. Without judgment. Don't get mad at yourself. Just start over. 3 minutes may seem like a long time once you get in the middle of this. Just keep counting your breath, and I will let you know when your 3 minutes is up. Okay, so let's all take one deep breath in and out. And then start counting your breaths. So how was that? Yeah? Did it seem longer than 3 minutes? No? But it did for you. That's okay. That's okay, I don't blame you. You know, whatever it is that you need, that 3 minutes is your time. And I've actually had educators ask me that, like, I don't want to do this because I think it's going to put my students to sleep. And there's 2 trains of thoughts on that. Well, okay, if you really need them to be awake, then you can choose a different activity, like maybe walking around the classroom or something else. Yeah. But the other side of that street is that, so what? So what? Maybe they needed that little 3-minute refresh of the brain. They're not going to fall asleep, right? They're going to wake back up. But, you decide what's best for your class if you try something like that. Okay, so I'm through all of my information giving for this one. So we said the contemplative practice in the classroom, that workshop next week is going to specifically look at activities that we can do in the classroom. This is meant to be more about how you first experience it for yourself. So I have these here. They're your mindfulness plans, your personal mindfulness plans. And what I'd like for you to do, the questions there prompt you pretty obviously, but to think about what time of day or times of day you realistically have to practice, what times you would like to practice, where you would practice, and then very honestly what challenges you might face in doing that. Also, what activity would you like to try or would like to continue doing? And how many times a day or per week would you realistically think about doing it? And then if you decided you did have some challenges, how will you try to overcome those challenges? Okay, so if we don't mind sharing a little bit, what times of day do you guys think are going to be better for you?
Evening or afternoon?
Yeah, I'm not a morning person either. I can't do it in the morning. I have to do it at night before bed. It's very calming. But then sometimes I do fall asleep, which is a challenge.
Lunch break too.
Yeah, yeah, sometimes. Or you can just shut the door and make a quiet moment for yourself. Yeah. That was going to be one of my suggestions, was to not forget about those moments before meetings, committee meetings, whatever it is that you're, even before class, to kind of center yourself a little bit. What challenges did you guys come up with? The phone. Constant barrage of media that's coming at us. Most definitely.
I was just thinking about doing it in the evening when I get home, but also having like a to-do list in my mind, and
Mm-hmm.
I should address these things before dinner.
Yeah, I highly recommend, and it's something we do with our meditation group too, is to have some place to write down your to-do list before you sit down to meditate. Simply writing it down and telling yourself, okay, I'm not going to forget it. It's right there. Will help you
I would
to
even
focus
do,
it.
like put meditate on the to-do list.
There you go. It's another thing to check off. Yep. Yeah, that's a good idea. And does everybody, what kind of activities are we looking at trying?
I'm thinking either, I've been trying to walk every day, so weather permitting.
Mm-hmm.
And I was curious because the other day I was walking and just, just kind of in la-la land, and I thought, I wonder if this could be considered meditating. So,
You can, as you know now. But what's important when you're walking is to focus on the actual sensation of walking. You know what it feels like. And of course, you're not going to walk that slow. If you're walking across campus again, people are going to look at you like weird. But you can walk at any speed, whatever your natural speed is, but actually focusing on what it feels like to take that step. Heel, toe, and maybe the sounds that are going on. But if you're walking and you're thinking about the other things, it's no different. You're not focusing in on what you're doing. Do what? Oh, yeah, you got to really focus on those. That's a good. I haven't heard that one yet, but that is. Huh. Knocked you right out, huh? That's very true. My meditation app's going off over here. That is a really great idea. Would have never thought of that. Well, whatever challenges you guys came up with, did you come up with some kind of way to overcome them? Well, we talked about her to-do list. Yeah? Yeah. Yeah. What about the phone distraction? Yeah. Yeah, I wear this, and this thing dings all the time, even if I'm trying to ignore it. So airplane mode is the answer to that, definitely. Practice, yeah, as in like just keep trying. Yep. As Dan, our mouth friend, said, it can take 5-10 minutes a day. He even goes on to say in his book, even 1 minute of doing this actively can make a difference. Do you? Good, great. And that was just 3 minutes. Yeah, isn't that amazing? Imagine doing that every day. His name is Dan Harris. The book I just purchased is Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics. So far, it's been quite entertaining. I want to get in the mind of the fidgety skeptic. And I know he has another one, but off the top of my head, I can't think of it. But if you Google him, you can also find the YouTube clip of him having anxiety-like mental breakdown on TV that he willingly put up there for everybody to see. So it's really not as bad as he describes it. But I guess to him, it was like life-changing. But whatever it takes. Okay, well, I think, unless you guys have any questions, I will put in a plug. Like I said, we do have mindful meditation for faculty and staff Tuesday and Thursday of every week. Tuesdays at 4 p.m., Thursdays at 10 in the morning, right here. We turn the lights down. We sit in a chair or on the floor or wherever you want, and we do that breathing meditation just like you guys did, just for a longer period of time, usually 15 minutes. So, and we always start the meeting out with this is meditation, this is how you do it, so that no matter where you are in the process, everybody feels welcome and like they can join in. So come with us. If you can come, I haven't had anybody come this week. We've had a couple people from in the library, but everybody else is like, no, I'm not brave in that weather, and we don't blame you. But come join us and bring anybody who's interested in it. It's a good beginner activity. So you can tell. 3 minutes made a difference. Can't imagine what 15 will do.